I believe I was born in Springfield. At that point, my father was just working out. It was just before the war, 1940. So I just kind of grew up here. And we lived up in the woods there where Matt Hill's place is now, but we had a camp up there, and that's where we lived, as I was told, and I can't really argue with it. So and I remember growing up there, but we moved, and I lived in Canaan for quite a few years during the war. 1940 was that time frame, so we didn't think much about it, and lived over there in Canaan, right alongside Route 4. I could sit there and watch the trains go by, and the Army guys were riding the train from somewhere, and they'd go by and stand out there and wave at us and have a good time. And we moved along, and in 1945, the end of 45, just about 46, we came back to where the farm is, and that's where we moved so I could start school in Springfield. Up until that time, I always went to, lived in Canaan, side the road, and watched the traffic go by, and we'd drive over here and do some work around the farm and whatever, and then they wanted me to be able to start school in Springfield. That's where my first 3 years of school was, right there. Went to high school in New London. Several of us went together there. We weren't going on to college. We decided that maybe we should go in the service. So we signed up to join the Air Force and got to 3 more. We actually had 5 kids from New London at one time that went in the Air Force. And it messed up their schedule because they only took 4 people at a time. And we had to take 5. So they figured out a way to change it, and they put 5 of us together, and we took a train from Potter Place to Manchester. And we hung around there for the rest of the day, and then we were sworn in the Air Force. Now we're in the military, we're government material. In Manchester, we got on an airplane. That's the first ride I can remember in a real airplane. And we flew to Texas. Went down to Texas to the Air Force. That's when we found out what the Air Force was all about. They took us down there and they explained to us that whatever we knew now was nothing. We had to start from scratch. I was going to be a mechanic on one of them airplanes. And really, the story came out later that the problem they had was a shortage of mechanics. And to work on those old antiques that were going up being phased out, but they had to have people there to keep them running until they got the jets. So they decided that there was a batch of us that were going to be mechanics, and we were going to fix them old airplanes. And so we did the basic training in Texas, and they cut us short there. We only had 6 weeks down there before they put us on a train to go to Illinois, because that's where the airplane mechanics learned. So we went up there, and they narrowed us down a little bit and figured out that some of us weren't going to be mechanics. They kept the rest of us to do what we had to do, and so we spent, I think it was 6 or 8 weeks up there. Of course, by then it got to be towards Christmas time, and we were wondering what they were going to do about it there, and they come in and they laid out a list, and they said, okay, you, and you are going to be transferred to Pease Air Base, and you're going to learn to be mechanics. So we did. We left there in first part of December and went home for a few days or weeks, I guess it was, just to get a break. And we had to be at Pease Air Force Base in time to go at such and such a day. And it was like the 28th or 29th of December. So we drove down there and signed in. And the guy said, no, we don't care what you do. We don't need to see you till, the 1st of January. He said, we're closed up for the, you guys do whatever you want to do. And here we are in the middle of no place, and everybody's at Air Force is gone. So we were clever enough to have got a ride down there with Dave's sister, brought us down, so she hadn't left yet. So we rode back with her. Took 3 days off and didn't know what we were doing. We were just there. Got back down there and the guy assigned us a room and we proceeded from there to become airplane mechanics. And that took us about a year and a half to really get good at it. But we did it, and we sat there in the air base down there, just at Pease Air Force Base, and went to work in the morning, came home at night, just hang around till it was time to go back to work. And we were continuing our schooling, so we had some days that we had to go for marching or whatever. We had, a few other duties that we had to take care of, but primarily we were learning how to be a mechanic. We went to Iceland. I think that was my second or third year there. We were a SAC trained base, being Strategic Air Command, and there's only so many bases in the world that are SAC trained. And Pease was one of them. And the reason for that was the ideal location of being right on the coast, so that if we ever had a strike or anything coming at us, we would be ready to be SAC-trained killers. And that was about all we could think of. They called us because we never seemed to go. About every couple, 3 months, they'd have a SAC alert, blow the whistle, and a certain number of people would stop whatever you were doing and go get your bags and carry them to a certain place, and the airplane would get you out there, and they might taxi you around the base and bring it back. You might just stand there. But once you finished that assignment, as far as going to that airplane, you couldn't go back to work, whether it was 3 days or 3 minutes. You had to go do nothing and get out of the way. And that was kind of fun, you watch the other guys bust their butt, you sit there and just shake your head at them. You go to chow hall and get there early and wait till they got done to come out of work, come in and rebel rouse you. But, we did it. At some point, we would have an alert, and they'd drag us down to the airport, down to the runway. They'd put us in an airplane, and they'd taxi us out and come back and park. So, and every time you went, you had to carry a duffel bag full of goodies and your toolbox. And, some of those get pretty heavy after a while, just to carry down there to lug them back. So we'd leave them down there, and you'd bring them back and take them away and whatever. But we had some guys that got smart. They were real clever guys, and they packed their duffel bags full of warmed up newspaper or something, so it was light. They could carry it. Well, you get us on the plane one night, and they take off. And every once or twice we'd had been known to take off, circle the airport, and come back. Well, this night we took off and said, there's another trip. Get ready and lean back in the corner, because you got to remember, we didn't have seats in that airplane per se. We had a bench like you got sitting there, and we just sit there in that bench seat till they tell us to get out and get off. So we took off, and we go circle around the area and come back and land. So we weren't too upset either way. We'd lugged our bag out, our toolbox, put it in the airplane, knowing that in 20 minutes or an hour we were going to take them back out and go back. So we didn't pay much attention. So this one night we get in there and we throwed everything on like we always did. Went in, picked the seat out, seat belted ourselves down, and sat back, batted the breeze, and finally we took off. And it's no big deal. And, after a little while, we'd been up there a ways, and we thought, this ain't just right. So we started questioning people, and finally we got to one of the ground crew that goes with the airplane wherever it goes, and they said, "Oh yeah, we're going to Iceland or Thule, Greenland," and I don't remember whether it was Iceland or Thule, Greenland, but we're going up there. Okay, don't bother me. I got everything I own in that bag, so I could care less, you know. So we got up there and we landed in Iceland, and it was 40 below zero. And we just got off the plane, and they told us as we got off the plane, "Don't worry about a thing, we'll load the bus. You just get in the bus. You can't go anywhere." So we went, got in the airplane and sat down. And they put us in the bus. And we got up to the hangar where they were going to unload us, and they stopped and they said, "Now before you get off, walk from the bus to the door. Don't run, don't hurry, because it's real cold out there. It's about 40 below and the wind is blowing and all, and you know, it just ain't good for you." So we believed them and walked to the thing, and they carried the bags in later and the toolboxes and all that stuff, and we got to watch for 3 days as they worked on an airplane. One of our planes had a bad engine, so they had to change it. And the first guys there were all eager, and they were going to do it, so we let them do it. We weren't very hard to get along with, you know. It's just easier. But so we changed the engine, and I think there's 4 bolts that hold the engine and all its attachments onto the wing, and I think we got to help tighten up them 4 bolts. The rest of the time, those guys just jumped all over it. They loved it. And so after that, we got back, and we were back to the barracks for a day or two, and we got ready to leave, and they loaded us on the airplane, and we got out there, and we head down the runway, ready to take off and head back to New Hampshire. All of a sudden, we stopped going down the runway. Uh-oh, something's not right. Well, it seems that the long story short is that we had a problem with the ground crew. The Air Force has all the officers, they're all something or other, and it seems that 1 or 2 of them had lost some money in the 3 days that we were up there at the club. And they figured out that if they could stay 1 more night, they could get some of their money back. So they figured out a way to cause the plane to have a malfunction. And they did, and it worked. Then they stopped the plane, brought it back around, but they didn't realize that our captain of the maintenance side, he was on the plane. He came in, and he went up and he explained to those boys that he knew what was wrong, and he actually knew who had a problem. And he said, "I'm going to suggest that we try this again, and I will see you when we get to Portsmouth." And sure enough, we took off, no problem. But that was about the only excitement about the whole day up there. We just walked around, and we kept the plane running. We got the planes running. We did our thing. And every so often, we'd have a SAC alert. We'd get out and grab our stuff and go down and get. And in the process of these alerts, there was more times than not, there was somebody that was smart enough to pack his bag full of newspapers so it wasn't heavy. And he'd always get caught sooner or later. We had good times down there. I was down at Pease 3 years and 8 months out of 4 years, and I stayed there. Disappointed because, you know, one of the things they told you when you joined the Air Force was join the Air Force and see the world. And we saw the world. That was the only time that I ever went anywhere, was up to there and back. Some guys got shipped out everywhere. The problem was that these airplanes that we worked on were the ones that were being phased out. They were old, millions. hours on them, and they just kept them going because they were the tankers, and you had to be there when they had to run, and so they'd bring them back in, they'd take them out. I got lucky enough to be in the maintenance crew that took care of the after the effects of the inspections and stuff like that. So after the planes went out, we ran them and got them ready to go and give them stamp approval. And they'd go out and they'd fly them and come back and be gone. We might not see them again for a month. We might see them again in a couple of weeks, depending on how much they used them. So we got to learn them. We knew the planes well. And we knew some of the nasty tricks that they could play on us and whatever, but we were able to keep them going. And there was 4 guys or 3 guys to each engine when they were in the shop to be worked on. So you worked on yours, and if you got it done, you kept your mouth shut. You just stayed right there and kept on working like you were busy, and you didn't get moved around too much. If you got caught up and you were done, then somebody else might need some help, and you'd have to go help them. But honestly, we all got along pretty good, so it wasn't a problem with us. Some guys had a problem. The other end of the air base, there was 2 wings at the Air Force down Portsmouth. There was the 97th, which was us, and then there was the 100th, which is the older one that was there. And when, somewhere along the way, the Air Force decided to sign a second wing. It was about the time again. The Second World War was finishing up, but they were getting some feeling that we were going to have some more stuff. And being on the coast, Pease was there, a couple of ones in Bangor, Maine, one up in there in Iceland and all that. So those were kept well manned, and the rest of them were whatever, we don't know. So we got to be able to do as we needed and yet not work too hard most of the time. So it was a pretty good deal. Other than the fact that my reason for joining the Air Force was to see the world. That's what the recruiters all said. And you get there, you move around. So we kept thinking that they were going to ship us out, but never happened. 3 years and 8 months, I was at Pease. In here, I knew it. I memorized it. I knew it was 92 miles from my house to the air base. And you drive down on a Friday night and go back down on Sunday night and come back out to work. So you go to work. And it got so that I was clever enough not to have to work too hard at night. I just went around, did my job, and mind my manners. And that was the whole thing of the Pease. And it really aggravated me. In fact, they started teasing about a year from the time you were getting out about having you re-enlist and stay on forever. And I said, not as long as I'm going to be here, and I don't see how I can get out of here. So we hassled for a while, and they said, well, it's 6 months before you get out. You either got to sign the re-enlist or you got to leave. And so here I am. I left down there, and I didn't feel bad about it, only because I was single and still didn't give a rat's butt. So I had a good time. I had I can tell you lots of stories about between here and Portsmouth. So, but that was my biggest career, and I never did get to see any more in the world except for that one up there.